video tutorial on how to solve quadratic equations. I've written out two straightforward examples and we're just going to go through them step by step, and hopefully by the end of the video you'll be able to use the procedure laid out to solve additional problems. On the top right hand side I've written out the general form of a quadratic equation. So it takes the form of ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So the a, b's and c's are just real values. So a in our case is a coefficient of x squared. In our case it's 1. B is a coefficient of the x or the whatever variable you're using in the equation, and then c is just the constant value. So what we're going to do is we're going to factorize the equation, and then we're going to follow the algebra, and it's going to lead us to an x equals value. Or that's the plan anyway. So from the off we can see that the x squared has a coefficient of 1. So I'm just going to write out these brackets here. So if you remember, factorizing is, for example, if you have a number 10, the factors there would be 5 by 2, 1 by 10. So it's the factors that when in product with one another give you that value or expression. So we have an x squared here. So I'm just going to put an x as the first expression in the factors here. Now what we're going to do now is we have to find the values that make up 14 when in product with one another, so the factors of 14. Okay, so we'll just do that at the side here first off. So we have 14. So what are the factors of 14? Well, we have we'll put minus 14. So we have a plus or minus 1 by 14. So 1 and 14 are factors. And we have a plus or minus 2 by 7. Okay, so 7 and 2 are also factors of 14. And what we have to do is we have to find a set of factors that when added together or minus from one another make up the coefficient behind the x expression here. So from looking at the set of factors, so we have factors 1 and 14, and we have 2 and 7. So from looking at these factors, is there any way of adding or subtracting one of these values from one another to get the value of minus 5? Well, straight away, if I add or subtract 1 and 14, I'm not going to get a minus 5 value. But when I look at the 2 and 7, I see that if I have a 2, a positive 2, and a negative 7, that's why we had the plus or minus here, that is equal to minus 5. And now we've found the coefficient of that second expression that contains just the x. So now we know we can fill in the rest of these factors here. We have a positive 2, so then the factor is going to be positive 2, and then the second factor was a minus 7, so then we're going to have a minus 7. So what have we done here? We have factorized this quadratic equation, so these two are equal to one another. This one is just factorized, and we factorized it by getting the factors of the constant, and then we check to see if when we summed one factor with another, could we get the coefficient of the x variable here. Right, so what we do now is we have to put each factor equal to 0, as one of them is going to equal 0. So the first factor here is x plus 2, and we let that equal to 0. And then this is quite straightforward here. How do we get x on its own? Well, minus 2 from each side. So we can see that x is equal to minus 2. So that's our first value for x. I'll just draw a line under here. And then we're going to take the second factor, the same story, x minus 7 equals 0. And then we can plus 7 to each side. So x equals 7. So the x variable is either going to be a minus 2 or a 7. Okay, so I'll box these off. So what you have found so far is you have found the values for the variable x that satisfy the quadratic equation. And when we say satisfy the equation, what that means is that when we insert, say, the -2 in for x, the equation gets balanced. So we'll show that now. Okay, so let's test to see if -2 is a root of this equation. So we're going to plug the -2 in for everywhere we see x. All right, so we're going to have a -2 squared here. I have a -5 by -2, and then we have a -14 equals 0. And then we'll just do this out. So -2 squared, we know that to be 4, and then we have a -5 by -2, which is positive 10, and then we have a -14 equals 0. Well, we can see that 14, so 4 plus 10 is 14, minus 14 is going to equal 14 minus 14 equals 0, or 0 equals 0. So the equation was balanced. So we know that we were correct with finding x to be a value of -2. Okay, so I just made some room here. So we verified that the x equals -2 satisfies this equation. So we'll just do the same for the other value for x that we found, 7. So again, inserting this x value into the original equation, we're going to get 7 squared minus 5 by 7 minus 14 equals 0. So this is going to equal 49. This is going to equal minus 35. Then we have our minus 14 equals 0. So 49, we have a minus 35 minus 14. If we minus 14 for minus 35, we get a minus 49. So then we're left with 49 minus 49 equals 0, or 0 equals 0. So the equation is balanced. Going on to our second example, we have a variable of b, but it doesn't matter what the variable is, it's the same procedure. So once again, we have a coefficient of 1, so we can go straight into writing or grouping our factors together with one of the b's in as the first parameter here, and we can't forget that the whole equation is equal to 0. So again, to emphasize, rewriting this as a factor is the exact same as this original equation. We're just basically bending it in such a way that we can solve for the variables, because we can't do it straight from the off here. We have to basically form the equation in such a way that we're able to use it to find the variable values. Same procedure over here. What we need to do is find the factors of 15, and finding the factors of 15, we find the group of factors that when added together equal the 2b, so the coefficient in front of the b expression. So over here, I'll just write down 15. All right, so the factors of 15, plus or minus 1, plus or minus 15. The plus or minus are the same over here because we don't know if we're going to have to add the first factor or minus the second one, and vice versa. So we're just going to write the factors explicitly here. And then the second set of factors is going to be plus or minus 3, plus or minus 5. So they're all the factors that make up 15. So now what we have to do is we have to see what factors, when added together, give us a 2. Alright, so just looking at these, we have 1 and 15. If I add 1 or minus 1 from 15 or vice versa, will I ever get a 2? Well, the answer is, it's quite straightforward, you can't. But if I give you a number 5 and I give you a number 3 and I say, can you make a 2 out of that? You're going to tell me, yes, you can. So how would you make a 2 out of a 5 and a 3? Well, you would have a positive 5, but then you would have a negative 3. So the factors what we're going to use are 5 and minus 3, because that's equal to 2. Alright, so now we can just pick up what we found out and plug it into the factors here. So we have a positive 5, so b plus 5, and we have a negative 3, b minus 3. So what we have done here, as before, we have reformed this quadratic into a new form, but they're equal, remember. It just looks a little bit different. So now we formed it in a way that we can find the value for the variable b. So what we do is we let each factor equal 0 as before. So we have a b plus 5 equals 0. So then we know that b is equal to minus 5. And then we have a b minus 3 equals 0. So b is equal to 3. All right. So we have found two values for b, minus 5 and 3. So the important thing now is always to check to see if your answer is correct. That's a nice thing to be able to do, is to verify that your variable values are correct. And how you do that is you plug the value back into the original equation. So plugging the minus 5 into the original equation, that's going to give us a minus 5 squared plus 2 by minus 5 minus 15 equals 0. So that's a 25, that's going to be a minus 10, and minus 15 equals 0. So then that's going to be a 25 minus 25 equals 0, or 0 equals 0. Alright, so to verify the second value of b that we found is we're going to plug in 3. So we're going to plug in 3 into the original equation. So 3 squared plus 2 by 3 minus 15 equals 0. That's going to be 9. That's going to be plus 6. We have a minus 15 equals 0. 9 plus 6 is 15. Minus 15 equals 0, or 0 equals 0. Correct. So once again, we know that the value of b is either a minus 5 or a 3, as they both satisfy this equation. So that's all for this video, and yeah, hope you enjoyed it.